Hi, my name is Kelsey Nygren, and I want to tell you about an extraordinary book called Crank by Ellen Hopkins. This book is an amazing work about the life-altering journey of a young girl. It could be you. It could be someone you know. I believe, once having read this book, you'll come away with an insight that will enrich your life. It certainly did mine. So let's get started. Crank, the monster, the high, methamphetamines, meth. Now don't run away. I know those are pretty big trigger words, especially in young adult literature, with some pretty heavy issues behind them. But they are one of the core features of Ellen Hopkins' free verse novel Crank. So stay with me, and maybe you'll come to see why these issues are so important. Imagine you are the heroine of this book, Christina Snow, a young teenage girl with perfect grades, perfect friends, and a not quite perfect family. You are about to leave home to visit a father you've grown up without. Will he be charming? A steady rock for you to rely on? You hope so. But reality isn't shiny and perfect, and Dad is a deadbeat with no steady job, too many girlfriends, too much booze, and too many drugs to really care for or about his daughter. And you are disappointed, yes. But things become so much better when you meet the hot next-door neighbor, Adam. And Adam has something he wants you to meet too. It's called Crank, and it will change your life forever. You're hesitant at first. Is this really a good idea? Everyone at home would tell you you're stupid and be ashamed of you for even thinking about trying it. It's dangerous. But a rebellious side of you is rising up, overriding your normally ethical self. And so you say, without much pause, sure. And thus you dive headfirst into the underground world of drugs, Adam happily at your side, until you have to go back home. Adam inks a heart tattoo on your thigh as proof of his undying love, and you believe him because you want to. But you leave with something more important than love. You get on the plane, high. Get back to your family, high. And now you cannot get enough. Crank is all you want, all you need, and it helps you through the hard times as Adam dumps you, as other boys want you for your body and your drugs, as you slowly start to disintegrate. This addiction controls your life, cutting off ties with your family, your friends, and even yourself, until only one thing remains: the monster. This is the premise of Crank, published in 2004 by Ellen Hopkins. It is the first of a trilogy, and only one of many controversial novels Hopkins has penned. Others include Burned, Tilt, Perfect, and Crank's two sequels, Glass and Fallout. Crank is based partially on a true story. Hopkins' own daughter descended into a drug-addled world. Hopkins said she began writing Crank in order to work through her own feelings of having someone she loved fall victim to drug addiction, and how someone could fall victim to it so quickly and easily. Christina Snow, the protagonist of Crank, is just the typical teenager living in a modern world. She's easy to relate to, with a messed up family and her own desires for a boyfriend, good grades, and good times. This is the type of book that should be eaten up, like I did, in a few sittings, and then pondered over. There is nothing beautiful about Christina's journey, and that's the point. Drugs are incredibly damaging and are everywhere around us. Through Crank, Hopkins is trying to show us a world that is very much alive and can all too easily swallow someone in just one bite, just like a monster would. No matter how difficult the subject matter is, Hopkins writes it exceedingly well. While verse novels have become popular these last few years, such as those written by Sonia Sones, who wrote What My Mother Doesn't Know, and one of those hideous books where the mother dies, Hopkins is perhaps one of the more talented. Her writing draws one deeply inside the story, taking the reader on the highs and lows with Christina, weaving in poems within other poems to create a multi-layered message. While Christina slowly fades away into her alter ego that she names Bree, and falls away from real life into drugs, the reader is taken on that same roller coaster, watching as the narrator voice changes into someone reckless and desperate, watches as someone only struggles to get on that next high. Crank resembles other books warning about drugs, like the seminal work Go Ask Alice, written by Anonymous, but it does so with more subtlety and elegance. To illustrate Hopkins' writing talent, here is an excerpt from Crank, near the beginning of the novel, where Christina first dives into the world of drugs. Just before the drop. You know how you stand and stand and stand in line for the most gigantic, incredible roller coaster you ever dared attempt. Anticipation swelling minute by minute by minute. You choose to wait even longer, to ride in the front car, and finally it's your turn. They buckle you in, lock the safety bar with a jolting clunk. Hook engaged, the chain jerks you forward. You start to climb. Crank, crank, crank. Cresting the top, time moves into overtime as you wait for that scant hesitation just before you drop, knowing you can't turn back. You know how you feel in that instant? Well, that's exactly how it feels when you shake hands with the monster. Is this an easy book to read? No, it's not. The events are all too real and painful to experience. But the more important question is this book worth reading? And the answer to that is yes, because Christina's journey is an important one for teens and adults alike. Crank is sure to hook you and draw you into the struggles of a normal girl. You'll want to find if Christina is ever free of her addiction, if her life will return to normal. But why am I still talking? Why don't you go find out for yourself? But be careful. This monster bites. In the sequel to Crank, Ellen Hopkins returns to Christina's riveting story and her continuing struggle with the monster. Meet Michaela, Shane, and Harley, three teens whose world is rapidly beginning to tilt. Like Ellen Hopkins, Sonia Sones writes a free verse novel that shows a young teenage girl struggle to find love and acceptance.